And now that you're doing all this work with the students, do you think it's possible, like I said earlier, preserving an audience, do you think there's any hope? I hate to say, put it so bluntly.
What is it you want hope for? What do you want?
I think movies are terrible now. I think they're just terrible. And is there any way, don't applaud, that's nothing to applaud. But you're like directly responsible for training young people in how to make films, how to act in films, how to write films. And I'm a little nervous about it. And I want you to inspire me, Diane.
Well, come to the school and let you come and look at our work. And if you're up there at the spring show, which is on the 25th, you can come and see some of the work that we have running around on Van Ness in that building. We every year have a spring show, and we show the work from all the schools. And our department will do a reel of all the work that we've accomplished in the last year. But the big point is that I try to get the kids, and I say it to all of us, I say it, I often repeat it to myself, that I want people to do work about something. Mark Bergman came years ago to AFI, and I'll never forget being in the back of the room, and he stood on stage and he said, there are too many people involved in making films to waste money on something with no meaning. And they all stood up and applauded him, and he hugged every student as he walked down the aisle, and I was weeping. I just sat there. Things resonated with me about the something that he said, about something. It's such a large group of people to make movies. The amount of money, for example, Town and Country went over the 100 million mark, and then it hits 150 million of waste, total waste. It nearly bankrupted his studio. Why is it that when you can see a small movie, a small, beautifully crafted movie with people you don't even know, that are simple, just actors who really care. It's about the care and the time and the meaning and the writing and the direction. It can be perfect. It can cost nothing. And it can mean as much as the greatest fireworks and a mistake in history. And I just don't understand why Hollywood doesn't understand it, doesn't get it. And why don't they put a little money aside? We've always talked about this. Everybody's argued about it. The United Artists theory. We all put a little bit in. I said to Mary Steenburgen recently, I said, why don't we, she said, I'm not getting the kind of parts I want. I said, who is? I said, maybe we should go on the stock market. And we should put our names and say, we want you to back us. Let us pick a few really remarkable things that actors want to do. There are actors that want to do good work, but we can't, we're not the studios, and we don't own and run a studio, so we can't really choose, unless you're a star already, and then you do George Clooney, where you get a deal and you say, okay, I'll do your work, you do my little film. Then they end up winning awards and being nominated. But the entire industry is now being, the awards are going mostly to the independents. Not to the major studios, big pictures. Now, at some point, they're not going to make all this money. There are only about 6 movies that will make the millions and billions. And then the rest are all going to be what? We just have to find a way to keep that going. And I don't know the answer. I know there are as many people or more than there ever was. There's enough work for everybody. Why can't we all continue finding our niche? These are the films that you can go see because that's what they do. And the others are another group of movies that you can also go see that. The studios are run by people who are looking only at the market statistics and the demographics, and they're not looking at these little stories that mean something. Who saw some of the films last year? One was the film in the, the title is gone from me, made by 2 women.
The film in the Ozarks called Winter's Bone.
Winter's Bone was a beautiful film. Our teachers, our faculty all loved it, and I loved it. I come back, and even the film that Bob Duvall did. I mean, these beautiful little films that had a meaning, and I sat there reveling in them.
I was quite inspired when I read something that Diane said about returning to a studio system. And it's because you were saying that it's something that you could possibly do now.
I think actually where the timing is, the possibility that maybe we should begin to start contracting talent today and giving them a safe place to create and see what can happen and see if there can be some interesting ideas. Because I think that kids get catapulted to stardom much too quickly and not enough work. And so you can't find out what there is out there unless they get a chance to do something worthwhile. They're stuck into a half-hour series in a small part that's one tiny part of their talent, and they're stuck in that for maybe 7 years. And you don't get a chance to know the talent. And if you see them in a winter's ball, then they're after them for the next one. There's a man that you honored in Palm Springs, and I feel like I'm rattling on here. But his name was Alejandro Amenabar, who did The Sea Inside. He directed it. And I was in Paris one year, brilliant. And I was in the Canal Plus office with a lady named Isabel Peyrefitte, and she was on the phone with him in Spain. And she was talking away, and I was listening. I was overhearing this conversation. And he was being wooed by the Weinsteins to come to America after the others. And I said, excuse me, would you give a message to Mr. Amenabar for me? I'm sitting here in your office. Could you just give him a message? And she said, excuse me a minute, there's an actress here in the office who would like to say a word. And I said, don't come to America. Stay in Spain and make your film. You will be a success. You're brilliant. Do it. And then they'll invite you. They'll have you. And of course, I was at the Palm Springs Film Fest. And he was invited and nominations, and Javier Bardem suddenly is this major star. So I just think people have to tell their stories and do the best they can, and they will get recognized. It's when they start getting wooed by the money, and they think that having this huge bank account is going to make them better filmmakers. I'm just afraid it doesn't, because they never put it to use. They don't put it to use. If somebody handed me that, I would know that so much goes to the continuation of the work and has to be used to subsidize these young talents. And that's what I'm trying to do from my spot at the university in Hollywood, to subsidize these kids, to take care of them for at least a year, see what can happen with them, rent a space and keep them working, keep them functioning, and then see what happens. I talked to Sid a little bit about it. Is he still here? And got Sid. I mean, I feel this so strongly, I can't tell you. I went to Mike Medavoy and said, can you help me find a space? He introduced me to the man who runs the facilities at Sony and Culver Studios. And I'm trying to find a space that I can find a way to do this and keep them busy. And the kids only need about it. I know, I'm now doing a sales thing here.
You are
but it's about,
but that's
but
okay.
it's about what we can do with $15,000, $7,000 can make these kids 20-minute short films. And we need a place for short films. You can say a lot in 20 minutes that have meaning. So I'm not going to give that
You're absolutely fabulous. And I'm sorry to say that we are running out of time, and there is an infinite amount of other things that we could discuss. I didn't even talk about Alfred Hitchcock and his crush on you and all that stuff. But, well, maybe we'll get that last one in. And then we'll...
Yeah, it's not funny.
Now I guess you have to share. Because I'm sure you know Diane was in Marnie with Sean Connery and Tippy Hedren. I like all the... Marnie is now... I use the internet now, and Marnie is online. And you have people commenting, and all the comments are, what's wrong with that guy? He should drop Marnie info, go with Diane. So,
You've done a lot of homework.
but do please tell us about because you mentioned Donald's photo earlier in his Joan Crawford book. Of course, he wrote quite the book on Alfred Hitchcock.
I did 3 books on Alfred Hitchcock, he got me to talk about Mr. Hitchcock, and I didn't want to do it. I mean, I'm not interested in all that, but it's a very interesting dilemma because what I thought at the time, I didn't have any idea of the word harassment. I didn't know what harassment meant. But when I suddenly was at one of the guilds and there was a harassment meeting in the 80s, I suddenly turned to one of the people I was with and I said, oh my God, I think what I went through with Mr. Hitchcock was a form of harassment. It was the same thing that these people are talking about up here. He created this separation. Tippy was leaving. She wanted to be married, and he didn't want anybody married who he worked with as an actress under contract. He didn't want that. He kept always saying, you should never marry. Actresses should never. So I have to say he began to use me as a tool, a weapon against Tippy to get her upset. At first it was a weapon. The day I was at lunch at their home, Alma and Hitchcock, she pulled out a magazine and showed Hitch pictures of Grace Kelly. And it was like, oh God, why is she bringing pictures of Grace Kelly out? Well, look at her. She looks like this. And I'm sitting there. I hadn't even started the movie yet. So I let it go. It didn't bother me. I just thought how nice to be complimented. But as the thing progressed, it was so tough that I didn't have anyone to talk to. And I finally started talking to those I shouldn't have, which were at the studio. I went in and I just started crying. And I just said, I can't, I went to the set every day. And it was so hard because of the wedge that he was, creating between Tippy and myself. But Tippy knew that I always said, I wonder what you're saying behind my back when I'm not around. I said it to him one day. And he said, oh, no, I never say anything unkind about you behind your back at all. I care about you. And so, okay, and then that went on, and it was always near Tippy's dressing room. So he would hope she could hear what he was saying to me. So, of course, that fateful day came when my dressing room door, he came. Anyway, that's in this book that Donald wrote. But he kept me till the last day of filming, when I was supposed to be in Israel to make a film and rehearsal, and I missed it. So I just felt that he was angry finally at my turning him down and not not acquiescing. So Tippy and I remained great friends all these years, and what she's been through with that, and she talks about it now, where for years she didn't. And I think it's age that gives you the freedom to say things. But I have to say also that I think he was a genius, brilliant, but so geniuses exist, and then their private lives are very difficult in many cases. And his was very difficult. I must imagine Alma had a life. I remember when the book came out that the daughter wrote about the mother. That she felt it was time that the mother had a book about herself that felt that it was time her mother had support. And I'm sure that it was tough on her. His feelings for these leading actresses that were all very similar in this sort of cycle. But
it's called working it out in your art.
Working it out in your art, but he was a genius, and I'll never forget so many things I learned from him that I use in my acting classes all the time. And I won't go into it. One day I will try to write a book, but not about gossip. It will be about I think about all the great people I've met and learned from, and what that has meant to me. And I have met some extraordinary people in my life, and I've known them quite well. And I know Millie Perkins and I often reminisce about many of our experiences, and I realize that both of our lives have kind of paralleled And we've had some extraordinary experiences with many people in our industry. All mostly good, I think, and for me especially learning from the masters that came before. And one of them I learned from Crawford.
And now it's great because you're passing all this on to another generation, which I think is tremendously admirable. And when you are writing that book, give me a call. If you
I need
any
help on that.
Yes, please, call me.
Thank you all for
please,
coming
yes,
tonight.
thank you very much.